You've got plenty of people from the left who are telling us, tax more here and control more there. It's pretty simple to me that we need to have something that is in fact about trusting the people, about less government, about less taxation, reform that really sets us up for a long-term good. And Gerard Rennick, I know that you're passionate about tax reform. You've got your own ideas, your own views based on your own small business background. I mean, what sort of things should we be trying to look at right now to get Australia in the right position going forward?
Well, thanks for asking, Gary. I've got basically three main policies that I would like to, put forward, and I'll be putting forward in the party room. But number one, of course, is federation reform, and we've only got to look at the different and conflicting instructions given by state governments in this particular period of COVID to think, to see that we really need to get a more streamlined form of government. Secondly, we've got taxation reform, and one of my pet topics is about the exit tax on profits when they get shipped offshore. They're basically about zero, between 0 and 10 cents, whereas our onshore profits are taxed at 30 cents. So I'd actually like to see that rate lifted, and then that money raised from that actually going to lowering income tax here in Australia so that we can create more demand here in Australia. And third, not least, is monetary policy. We really need the RBA to basically, with Infrastructure Australia, to look at creating an infrastructure bank that basically issues credit to the government to build infrastructure such as dams, ports, airports, freight corridors, whatever we need, transmission lines, power stations, to basically get this country going again, supply more energy, supply more water, and lower the cost of doing business.
OK, well, I like the idea of lowering the cost of doing business. I mean, Bronwyn Bishop, they found 60 billion reasons why they shouldn't trust the Mandarins in Canberra today. I mean, they missed it by that much. Government should be, I think Keith Pitt basically said this as well, fold that stuff back and put it back into their top pocket. We don't have to borrow that 60 billion. But less government, less tax, less regulation, surely they're reasonable principles.
Well, yes, they are. And Gary, when I first started talking about socialism, people laughed, and then the people got it.
Yeah.
When I started talking about China, and it's when everybody else was praising it and I was warning against it, and they were talking about its amazing economy, now they're seeing the ugly face and they're seeing a failing economy. Now, the other thing we started talking about, and is absolutely necessary, we have to rebuild manufacturing here in Australia, and I'm very pleased to see that Mr. Gonski now agrees with me, and those of us who've been saying that. But to make that happen, it means we have to be competitive, and the only way we can do it, where we have high wages in our country here, is to have cheap electricity, and that means we have to use coal. 80% of our energy needs are still met in this country by coal, and yet it never gets mentioned. Even in this new way forward that we've been hearing from Angus, it wasn't there up front. It has to be. And we have to get out of Paris to send that big signal and to say that we are not going to be hindered and hampered while China, which is on the march, is given the advantage of saying, well, you don't have to reduce emissions at all. It is a ridiculous situation. China wants our coal, they want our iron ore, they need it, but they want to control it. And this is the thing that we have to be wary of. We cannot become a vassal state. And indeed, am I going too far to say that they're using our coal and our iron ore to build their warships?
Well, I fear that you're not going too far. That's the problem, Bronwyn. I mean, Gideon, the point here is that Australia doesn't need to cut its wages, but Australia does need to cut the input costs into manufacturing. I mean, it's all well and good for the usual voices to talk about we've got to have more manufacturing, but the way forward on more manufacturing is to get rid of some of these blue tape costs that are added on to all of our manufacturing processes. Power and water are a really good example of it. The regulations that are fouling up everyday business people. All these forms that have got to be filled in, Gideon. What are we going to do about it?
Gary, you are spot on, and Bronwyn is spot on. The reason we don't have a vibrant manufacturing sector in this country is because we have killed it, and we've killed it over a very long time. We've done it in a few ways. Number one, our energy prices, among the highest in the world, despite being one of the most energy-rich continents on planet Earth. Number two, wage costs are a factor, and that's largely because of militant unions and our very inflexible award system. And while nobody would dispute a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, I think we need to make it easier for businesses to hire people and to bring people on. High wages are great if you have a job, but if you are long-term unemployed people, it means you hardly get a look in. And number three, as you mentioned, is red tape. Now, one thing we say over and over and over again at the IPA is our research suggesting that red tape costs Australia $176 billion each and every year in lost economic output. That's $176 billion of businesses that are never started, $176 billion of jobs that are never created, $176 billion of wealth and prosperity and living standards not enjoyed. And, the best thing about cutting red tape is that unlike all these massive spending problems and all manner of industry assistance, quite frankly, that people are proposing, cutting red tape would turbocharge our economy and it would not cost the Australian government 1 cent.